We're Reborn. Gospel 1440 AM. WMKM.
God is raising up a generation of leaders.
Yeah.
That are going to listen to such a degree that we no longer lose out on what God has ordained for us to walk in. If we would but listen, He's saying, listen, I want to raise up a generation, and the key to that is my voice. I created the entire world with my voice and my spirit. I poured out my spirit on Pentecost. My spirit is still flowing, not going to leave. And if they would just listen,
Freedom!
You're listening to Apostle Jeremy Scott Gibbs Ministries, singer, songwriter, author, prophet, teacher, my apostle, Jeremy Scott Gibbs.
Gotta sing freedom to dance, freedom to sing, come on, freedom to go, I'm telling you.
And now, Apostle Jeremy.
Thank you, First Lady. That was First Lady Tanya, who is usually with me. Every once in a while, she has to be somewhere else, but she's usually at my side. I am Apostle Jeremy Scott Gibbs, and it's an honor once again to be on the radio with you and to share my heart and what the Lord's laying on me. Also in studio with me, Kaylee Gallagher. She is the children's pastor of the Landing Community Church in Glenpool, Oklahoma, which is south of Tulsa. And she has come all the way out here because we've been having our Leadership Empowerment 2015. We kicked it off last night with a birthday bash, and it was very exciting, a great time, and we're going to continue that tonight. So if you're in the area and you can make it out to 8101 Mack Avenue in Detroit, Michigan, we're starting at 7 p.m., and it's Leadership Empowerment. If you're a leader or a leader in training and you want to be encouraged and strengthened without feeling condemned or put down, but just built up, then come out and enjoy great fellowship. We're going to be there tonight. Apostle Moore, which many of you that listen to this radio show, you've heard him on. He was a guest about a month ago with me. He was gracious, him and his wife, First Lady Diana Moore. She's a pastor. They were gracious enough to open their church so that we could host it in the greater Detroit area because a lot of our ministry connections are down here. So it's an awesome time. We're going to be there tonight at 7 p.m. and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Go ahead, Kaylee, say hi.
Hi, guys. I'm so glad to be here.
She flew in all the way from Tulsa just to be here for my birthday and for the conference. We actually put her on the spot last night. There was several people. First Lady, I gave her a list, and she just called up a number of people to come and say a little bit and about, just our connection, my connection with a number of people. I love connecting with people and sharing my heart with them and just loving on people, and that's what it's all about. And another person that's also in the studio with me, and he's feverishly moving cameras around and doing things, is my awesome audio and video guy, Tim Allen. Yes, and he often makes the joke about his name, that he must have had to be in some kind of broadcasting arena because his name is Tim Allen. But Tim's here in the studio, and he's setting up. I don't know if he can reach over to the mic real quick and say hello, but if he can't, that's all right. He's shaking his head at me, so we'll let him be. But anyways, I just want everybody out there to know that the ministry's growing, that the Lord's doing mighty awesome things, and I'm just enjoying it because it's taken a long time to get to this position and to get to this point in my life, but it's worth the wait. And I was thinking about that, just the idea those of you that have been listening, I've been dealing with confidence for the last month and a half, and just focused on what it means to be confident in the Lord and to versus we're confident in a lot of concepts and a lot of different things, but are we confident in the Lord? And of course, the scriptures that I've been giving, 1 Corinthians, or 2 Corinthians chapter 3, we've been made confident as ministers of a new covenant, not of the Spirit, or not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. And then I've been dealing with a number of them out of 1 John. And talking about the different areas of being confident because we obey His commands and we love one another as He commanded us. And so just these different ideas. But we're going through Leadership Empowerment, and as we were dealing with things last night, the birthday anniversary celebration, which I turned 43 on Wednesday, and so we did the birthday, but then also it's been 8 years of full-time ministry with Heartland Fellowship Training Center. And so we were dealing with that. And so thinking about confidence, and just that confidence doesn't come overnight. It's not something that happens necessarily in a moment or even a short season. Confidence comes over a lifetime of experience. And I was thinking about that and how many people out there, they're looking for confidence. They're looking for something immediate to happen instead of being allowed to be in an environment to grow. And I was just thinking about how much, First Lady, you've had the opportunity with me, being my wife, to grow and at your pace instead of being forced to be something that you're not too early. And that to me is a mark of confidence, is that we're allowed to grow. And I don't see that happening a lot in churches. We're expected to come in the door one week as, as some people say, a rank sinner, and then walk out the next week as this, I've got my Bible now, here's my equipment, here's all my stuff, and I'm an expert on Jesus.
And I've got it all figured out already.
Yeah, and that's not the truth.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. And we've got to allow people to grow. It's just like children. It's amazing to me. If we were all horses, yeah, we get born and a few hours later we're running around the barnyard. But we're human beings.
Right.
The process is much slower in the natural with human beings. I look at my grandchildren, and they're, both turning 2. Little Tay just turned 2 and Hope next week. Monday. But being 2 years old, they've had about a year to walk. So, but it took them a year of doing nothing and then crawling and then learning to walk and many falls and everything like that. But I just think about their confidence. Even though they're walking now, there's some confidence. In fact, I'm watching them. I was watching them the other night, and I was amazed at my lack of confidence in them. Little Hope and Little William or Little Tay both got on the edge of the cushion, and a drop from the edge of a cushion is only about a foot and a half. But I was still ready to grab them or whatever, and they just kept going to the edge of the cushion and then plopping on their butt and sliding off the front of the cushion with no thoughts, they had no reservations, no fear. And I'm ready to catch them like they're going to go forward off the end of the thing. And I marveled at the idea of their level of confidence and where they were at. And it was very interesting to me to see that dynamic and observe that and go, wow, Lord, there's a lot of times where when we don't know any better, we have more confidence than when we think we figured it out. And that takes me always back to Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6 that says that we're to trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding, but in all our ways acknowledge Him, and He'll make our path straight, or He'll direct our path. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that was dawning on me, it was like, you know what, Lord, the more we figured out, it really is 1 Corinthians chapter 8, that knowledge puffs up. The more knowledge we get, the more head knowledge we get about where we're at, what we're doing, the more we can be cautious and fearful, versus when we're like a child, there's more confidence. They'll go climb something, they'll go jump on something, they'll grab something out of your hand if they want to eat it. There's a confidence that's almost bordering on arrogance or pushy sometimes with kids, because they don't know any better.
Right.
And then we don't understand that later on in life. And I think that's why the Lord said, one of the reasons why the Lord said that we're supposed to receive the kingdom of God as little children, because there are elements that children have of that lack of fear and those confidence and everything like that really can allow us to grow and be productive in a way that when we're later on in life, we're not able to be as productive. So I was just thinking, I was going to ask you a little bit, Kaylee, you've stepped into a new role at the church there. You've helped out for a number of years, but you went through a process of going to ORU, going to the college there, the university, and you originally were very confident in your walk, in your experience. You were a singer and you won all contests, and you were in your town, you were the belle of the ball. You were the one that if there was going to be a singing contest, you were going to win that contest with your voice. And but then you ended up at ORU and you're expecting to be a music major, and you went through all this process and it ended up not being available to you through circumstance and situations, and you made that adjustment. And I was just thinking if you had any thoughts about how you had to adjust and just go, okay, Lord, this is not being made available to me. This is the reason I thought I was coming here, but I still have to trust you. Was there anything in particular that came out of that experience that really helped you just keep your faith and say, you know what, it may not be working out the way I expected it to, but I'm still going to trust you?
Yeah. Well, I think, back back in 2011, when I was a senior in high school, I mean, the Lord had told me I was going to ORU. So there was a confidence there of like, I mean, I thought I knew what I wanted to do, and I was going full force. Like, I was going to, do this music thing. But once I got there, and with different circumstances that happened, I mean, even though music was not the major I was going to go into, I mean, I knew the Lord had called me to ORU. And then soon after that, he told me that I would be graduating from ORU. And so I had to really seek him to figure out what major, where he wanted me to be at, and why, because I thought I had it all figured out at first.
and of course, the Lord we always get thrown a loop. And that's the essence and that idea of Proverbs, where it's, I'm going to trust you, Lord, and not lean on my understanding, because my understanding points me in this direction and that direction. And look at this. And, the reality is, I say this on a regular basis, that the Lord's not surprised, especially when I am.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's like, all right, Lord, you weren't surprised by this, but I don't know what to do right now. And he's like, you know what? Whether we lean on our understanding or not, sometimes the Lord directs us in a way that he just needs to get us to a certain place. Somehow, some way, he needs to get us there.
Exactly.
And so he puts he allows the desires of our heart to somewhat direct us into those places. But then when he gets there, he says, now I got you here. Now here's the real reason you're here.
Yeah.
Right.
And it makes, it's interesting, but it comes back to the idea that I was talking about with the child, is he wants us to be confident at least enough to get us in that forward motion and get us where we're going. So you were confident enough to get to the university and know that you were going to make it through. And then you got hit with, you were telling me that you went through all this process. You didn't just walk in and say, I'm going to be a music major.
No.
You walked in and you said, I want to be a music major. And they're like, okay, then you're going to have to go through all of these different tests and trials to actually get through that, to see if we're going to do it. And then we'll see if we accept you into that program. And you're like, really? And so then you went through all of it.
Yep.
And
Got
it came
to the very last one.
Yeah, and it came down to the very last one, and there was a circumstance we don't have time to go into in the radio, but there was a situation where it just didn't work out. And they loved your voice, but the music department required also the ability to be able to play an instrument. And so we can get into that another day. But the idea is just that the Lord made you confident by his Spirit, even though the circumstances changed later.
Yes.
And I think that's so powerful that people need to we don't have to be shipwrecked or fall apart if things change. We can still stay confident and say, you know what, Lord, I don't know why this turn of events has come about, but I'm still going to be confident because you got me here, and I'm still going to persevere. It's like we get caught up a lot of times on the exact dynamics and the exact parameters of a situation because a couple circumstances changed. And the Lord's like, no, just stay confident in my Spirit. I'm going to get you to. I think of that in Hebrews chapter 11. It says, the last two verses, it says that none of them, all of these were commended by faith. And it goes through this whole list, and it says all of them were commended by faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. Only together with us would they be made perfect or mature. And so it's that idea that, sometimes the Lord puts us in the right direction, and he wants us. I don't know if I'm the one to lay the foundation. I don't know if I'm the one that goes and gets all of the stuff like David did. David went and got everything. He lined up all the workmen. He lined up all the materials. He made all the connections, and he wanted to build the house of God. But the Lord said, no, you're a man of blood. You're a warrior. You're not the one to build it. Your son's going to build it. So sometimes we're the one that goes and makes all the connections and establishes things. But then it's the next generation, whether it be a natural generation, of our children, or a spiritual generation of our successor in faith with Elijah to Elisha, that they take over, they receive literally like Elisha, they receive the mantle and take over that and take it to the next level. I often marvel that Elijah they recorded 6 miracles, and Elisha, they record 12. And so it's literally this double portion. Now, of course, I believe that there were many more that they both did, more miracles than he did that are recorded. But it's interesting that even in the text, there were 6 that were pointed out, and then there were 12 that were pointed out because of that double portion and that succession. And it's just the same way with, even in the natural, when you see somebody builds a company, and then the next generation takes it over, and if they've learned lessons and grown, then they are successful to take it over. And so it in the area of being confident, it's like either the Lord's saying, I want you to establish something, and it's going to be, you've got I have created you with the skills and the abilities to establish this thing, and you're going to get it done. Or we're the person that comes in and he said, I've already had somebody here establishing this thing and building this thing. Now you're confident to take it over. And so it's very, to me, for those of you listening out there, determine where you're at. Get in the presence of God and say to the Lord, Lord, where am I at? Am I the person that is here to start something and bring it to a certain place and let somebody take it over? Or am I the person that's taking over? Something's being handed off to me. A mantle's being passed to me and I'm moving on. Because that'll show you where your confidence level is. With Tim being here, Tim and I have come to some understandings. Obviously, he's working with me. But one of the things that we had to come to an understanding with Tim was I said, listen, I'm not the guy that opens the door. I'm the guy that once the door is opened, I go through it and take, do what the Lord's called me to do. But I'm not the guy that opens up those doors and makes those grounds. And the thing is, Tim is that guy that opens the doors. Tim, you're now hands free a little bit, so you can say hi at least on the microphone.
Yes,
We're on
I
radio.
can.
Yeah, he's working on.
Are we up here on 4?
Yes.
Yes,
sir.
I can now say hi. Now that the camera is set up and we're recording.
Yes. So Tim is the guy, just giving you some insight. A number of you that listen to the show regularly, you've heard me mention Tim and him coming and being here. He is officially now a Michigander, and he doesn't even know what that means. But he's here now officially in Michigan and part of the ministry team on the ground. He's been a part of the ministry team for several months now, but he's literally here in Michigan, and we're going to be doing some powerful video production. If anybody out there ministry-wise is looking for a video producer and stuff like that, Tim can be loaned out on assignment periodically. But when Pastor Ken comes on later, you can connect with me and I can connect you with Tim. But either way, I had him get on there for just a minute because it's an understanding of I know my role. Tim can walk into several environments and he just strike up a conversation and he's just bold in that way. Whereas if somebody introduces me to somebody, then I'm bold in that conversation. And that's not to say that I'm not friendly or open or don't reach out to, I got a ton of people, but he has that knack, that gift. It's more of that evangelistic flavor to where he just walk in cold and say something. Whereas I want to feel a little bit more comfortable with the environment, know my surroundings, feel a little bit. And so we've come to this understanding. It's like, you open the door, I'll go through it. So I send him on assignment to open doors periodically because I know he can do that. And what I'm saying and explaining all of that is to give those of you out there listening an understanding that you don't have to be confident in everything. You don't have to be confident in every area of your life because there's some areas you're not called to be confident in. There's some areas that's not your area. And so we're trying, one of the models that we've been given in the church is to be all things to all people. Well, Paul said, I'm going to become all things to all people that by some means I might win them. That was Paul. He was an apostle. He was in a certain season in his life. And it's like we've taken this model and this template and we've tried to pass it on to everybody in the body of Christ that they have to be everything to everybody to try and win somebody. And the reality is, people that I reach are not people that Tim reaches, that are not First Lady, and that are not Kaylee's. It's just we're individual people, and our personalities and our tempos. It was amazing when we had the meeting last night. After the meeting had been dismissed, everybody, there was several people that lingered and hung out. And I looked back and observed Kaylee having this wonderful conversation with one of the young ladies in the church there. And as I, by chance, I was moving to the car, I caught part of the conversation, and you were actually sharing some of the concepts and ideas that I taught you previous a few, last month or something. Mm-hmm. And so it was very encouraging because I didn't feel drawn to that person, but you were, even though you were sharing along the same lines, the same message. And I look at that level of it's like I'm confident because I begin to understand my parameters, my area of expertise or my area of, and the Lord, that's the way the Lord wants it. He's like, listen, I didn't call you to be this and that and over here and running all over the place. I've called you to this specific work and this specific purpose. Mm-hmm. And if you would focus in on that and hone in on, I don't want the brain surgeon to come in and, put shelves up in my house. It's just, that's not his forte. I want him, if there's something going on that requires brain surgery, I want him, he's an expert doing it. My daughter Nicole is pregnant with her second child. Well, we don't want the catcher from the Kansas City Royals out there, even though they just won the championship and he's a great catcher. I don't want him catching my child because it's too okay. Yeah, he's a catcher, and this child needs to be caught, but That's not the kind of catcher we're looking for. So what I'm saying is that there's areas of expertise, and a lot of you listening out there, this area of confidence, you're struggling with the love, you're struggling with a lot of these other areas in your walk, and just you're trying to find yourself within it. You're being told, I got to deny myself, but then the reality is I got to love myself because I'm supposed to love my neighbors. I love myself, and so there's so many conflicting things. And I wanted to encourage you today when we were coming to the studio, just find your place where you're. I don't want to say comfortable because that has a negative connotation in a lot of churches, but really find the place where you fit, where you know, hey, this is where I get the most, and I'm going to use the word comfort because it's not a bad thing. The Holy Spirit is our comforter. It's when we're in a place where we're comfortable and stagnant, that's bad. But when we're comfortable and it's the place where we're successful and doing what we need to do, that's awesome. So I just want to encourage everybody, quit trying to run around and do everything and be everywhere. Just get into a place where you can relax and be yourself and do what God's called you to do, and allow yourself some room to grow. Allow yourself the ability to just adjust and trust the Lord and just develop as a person. I think so many times we shortchange ourselves in our development as people. Kaylee, you've been going through, since we've connected and the Lord's connected us, you've been going through some real development in your life. And just you described it the other day, and I was going to have you just say it again, that, you know, that development, you're like, I feel like I've everything that I learned. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, all my life, like I said the other day, I mean, I was always wanting to grow more in the Lord, like always pushing through either different churches or different youth groups, because I wanted more, and I wanted to mature, and I wanted more of Jesus, but I never felt anything like I've felt before. The Lord told me a couple weeks ago that it was immaturity, that I when I met you and you guys started speaking over me and the different things that we talked about, like the Lord said, okay, now we're moving into a new direction, a new level of maturity in me. And so it's exciting.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is you never lost your confidence in your relationship with God.
Oh no.
Even though you're growing.
Exactly.
And that's the thing is your relationship was the priority. And I think a lot of people is the relationship seems to be the priority, but it's actually adherence to a set of rules or a standard. And so when we fail to reach that standard, we make mistakes, which we're going to do. Though a righteous man falls 7 times, he gets back up. But the point is that a righteous man will fall. He's by definition a righteous man, but he's still going to fall. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we try to hold up a righteous or religious standard, knowing that we're going to fail in it, knowing that we're going to have issues, and yet the condemnation, the guilt, the fear, all of those other things come flooding in if the relationship isn't the priority. And Jesus constantly wants to bring us back to that place where the relationship is the priority. It's the priority. So again, we're talking about confidence today, and I just want to encourage everybody, find your, I want to say it like this, get centered within yourself. Find your place where you fit, where you know this is where I belong, whatever that is, even if it's small at this point, and begin to understand where you are in circumstances. There's a lot of you that are dealing with things in your heart, and you're struggling with things in your life because you're just not settled and balanced within yourself. And if you would work on that, I'm going to tell you, I do a whole teaching on spiritual warfare, and most of us, we read Ephesians chapter 6, and it's devil, devil, devil. Well, really the first level, according to the Greek words, of spiritual warfare is knowing your beginnings. We read the word principality, but it's actually the word in the Greek that we translate beginnings in almost every other passage except 2 or 3 passages that say principalities, which makes us think of demons. But the reality is your first battle in your life is discovering who you are. That's what the devil came against Jesus. He said, if you're the Son of God, that's the first battle. Who am I? And so it takes us getting into the presence of God and saying, Lord, who did you create me to be? In order to strengthen Jeremiah, the first thing the Lord came to him and says, I've called you to be a prophet to the nations, and before I formed you in the womb, I appointed you and set you apart. And Jeremiah says, I'm just young. And he says, don't say that. So the Lord had to come to him and establish that foundation. And it's so important in our lives when we understand who we are, then we can grow grow through all of these other changes that may, that could upset, things and cause other problems. But if we know who we are, that in the Lord, and we know the Lord, we're connected with Him, that can be our anchor in what we're doing. Again, I'm Apostle Jeremy Scott Gibbs. It's been an honor to be on the radio with you. As always, every Friday, 5:30 to 6. Love to have you tuning in. Again, check with us. And we're going to be posting a lot of our stuff on YouTube. And as Tim's here, he's helping me get a lot of this stuff arranged. We've got several years of material that's going to start getting out there. So on YouTube, Heartland Fellowship TV, we're going to be getting that more and more built up. We've got several videos on there, but if you've heard this show and you've been encouraged, there's so much more content out there to be encouraged. Connect with me on Facebook. Pastor Ken's going to be on in just a minute and tell you the Facebook pages for Apostle Jeremy Scott Gibbs Ministries and for Heartland Fellowship Training Center. That's our physical location, and we're going to be doing a relaunch come the first of the year for our Sunday services. We've been traveling and connecting with a number of ministries recently. So I just want to say God bless you and thank you for joining us tonight. Leadership Empowerment 2015. This is our third year of doing Leadership Empowerment, and each year continues to grow and be powerful and awesome. Tonight, Apostle Moore will be the keynote speaker. He's going to be flowing in the anointing. And then both of us are going to be flowing in the prophetic. I'm probably going to sit down on the piano and play a little bit, as you hear in the bumper intro. I am a singer-songwriter, and I obviously haven't done any songs on the radio, but we're going to be doing some. I'm going to be sitting down at the piano and playing and doing some worship, and it's a very intimate experience, and so we want to get some of that rolling, and so we just want to say God bless you. Find out who you are. Become confident in the Spirit of God and really trust the Lord and see what He's doing with you, because that's what it's all about. And if you can, 7 p.m., 8101 Mack Avenue, come join us for Leadership Empowerment tonight and tomorrow night. And we just want to say God bless you and thank you. Are we still got rolling? Yeah. Okay. You still got a few more seconds, so I'm going to plug that again. 8101 Mack Avenue, Detroit, Michigan, tonight at 7 p.m. Apostle Kevin Moore will be speaking tonight, bringing forth the word, and tomorrow night I will be speaking. It's going to be an awesome time. You want to come and be encouraged. You're a leader. You want to be strengthened. You want to be built up. You want to grow in what God has called you to do. Come and receive an impartation. It's not like you're going to get a huge download of teaching, because I don't want to puff you up with head knowledge. I want you to receive an impartation of the Spirit, to be encouraged in what God has called you to do, so you can go forth and be who God's called you to be in the earth and do what God's called you to do. And so in that, come join us. If you're around, if you're here in the area, come see us and then join us. Check out the YouTube links that we're going to have. We're going to be doing more and more of the media ministry and getting things for myself, for First Lady Tanya, and for Kaylee, and for even Tim. We want to say God bless and thank you all for everything that you're doing. And with that, we'll sign off for the evening, and hopefully we'll see some of you out at 7 o'clock tonight. Touch base with me on Facebook, please. If you've been encouraged by the show, or the Lord's speaking to you to support and pour into what we're doing, obviously things take money, and the radio show takes money. If the Lord's speaking to you, we'll receive that, of course, and speak a blessing over you. But connect with me. Let me hear from your heart what God has been doing to encourage you by what we're speaking on the show. And with that, God bless you.
Worship now, worship your God, let him go.
You've been listening to Apostle Jeremy Scott Gibbs. To contact or support financially, you can find Apostle Jeremy on Facebook and at ajsgm.org. Also, you can find out more information about Heartland Fellowship Training Center on Facebook and at hftc.info. I'm Pastor Ken, reminding you always to be led by the Spirit, know the Lord deeply, and love your neighbor as you continue to learn to love yourself.
Come on now, worship your God. Cry to the city, worship now, worship your God. Worship now, worship your God. Worship now, worship your God. Let him go.